Hi, my name is Zach Williamson. I'm a sophomore here at UW Eau Claire, an athletic training major, and this is my story. So, I grew up in a Christian family in northwestern Wisconsin, really small town. My family went to church every Sunday, loved and feared God, and I accepted Christ when I was in kindergarten, or if you can call it accepted Christ. And I rededicated my life to Christ when I was 13 in middle school, when I really started to explore my faith, and no better place than a McDonald's drive-through to do that. So that was my choice, and yeah, I just chose to dedicate my life a little bit more towards God instead of just going through the motions and going to church every Sunday. But the part of my story I want to tell you a little more about was my junior year in my church's youth group. Every year we would send our youth group to this conference in Green Bay called Districts, and this conference was for churches to send their youth to, for either to further their faith or for kids who hadn't heard about Christ to get exposed to that for the first time. And this conference was filled with large worship sessions and seminars for you to further your own faith in areas you chose to, and large talks about how to, for instance, further your faith in friendships and relationships and such. So, a lot of different aspects, and the person I want to talk to you about is Tim. Tim was a foreign exchange student from Kazakhstan who grew up in a Muslim family and came to the United States as an atheist. His host family sent him to youth group, otherwise I don't think he ever would have gone. And he decided to come to the conference with us. Now, on the Saturday of the conference, which was the second day, Tim had told me he was starting to feel some doubt about what he was living for, and kind of the whole nothingness just didn't really make sense to him anymore. But I didn't think much of it. He had been kind of a radical fun kid. He got into smoking weed and hanging out with the wrong crowd as soon as he got to America. So I didn't think much of it until later that night. There was an invitation to accept the gospel, and what it was is just telling people that Jesus died on the cross for our sins and wanted to share a relationship with us more than anything, not for us to follow some solid guidelines and live out our lives perfectly for the rest of our lives, but just to have that loving relationship with him. And Tim had gotten separated from our group, so none of us had seen him, but he came back up to my hotel room later that night with me, the pastor's kid, and our bus driver, and he walked into the room and said, "Guys, I just accepted Christ. What do I do now?" So first of all, I was just amazed that somebody could turn around like that in one day with this conference. So I'm just so thankful that God spoke to Tim that way and that we were able to walk him through what accepting Christ really meant. Less than a month later, Tim passed away in a car accident. And I don't know why God took him home that night, but either way, Tim was taken home. And I am comforted in knowing that Tim was in a good place with Christ when he passed. So if you can take anything from my story, I hope it's just that don't take time on this earth for granted. God calls for us to live our lives out for him and have that relationship with him. So I just pray that you don't take that for granted, because you never know what might happen the next day. I hope you enjoyed my story.